So this is the third part of our series. And just one thing for those of you who've been with us before, just to let you know that there's a change of date for the final one. It was in December, and we're bringing that forward to November. So today we are looking at transition from children's services to adult services. And to do that, the agenda is, so the Hear Me See Me webinar today is for professionals, but we also do some work with some voice groups where we have autistic adults from across the east of England coming on to a remote session where we talk about different topics. And so we've got some feedback from some of those adults, which I will be sharing with you first. And then we've got Helena Russell from Hertfordshire coming to talk about some work that they are doing where they've got a new process starting to happen, which hopefully you'll be interested in. And she would be, she's very happy to answer questions afterwards about the work that they're doing there. And then we've got Rachel Hatton, who's a transitions officer for Autism Hertfordshire, and she's going to be talking about the transitions project that they're on, why it was needed, and what is happening with it. And there's going to be some feedback within that from some of the local adults that they support. And then just a couple of slides on sharing good practice and how you can do that. So that is the agenda, and we will get started with me just giving you a bit of feedback from some of the group works that we've had. So within the groups, we have some parenting carers that join us, but we also have a lot of autistic adults who come on and share their experiences. Some of it, they come on and talk to us, and we send a survey out and get some responses back from them through the survey as well, for those who don't want to be on a remote meeting. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware that the moving through from children's services to adult services is not easy. That things have been happening to try and make that a lot easier over the past few years. But there are still a lot of people who are having struggles. And we hear it from parents that they don't get information early enough. Sometimes it's last minute. For children who are in mainstream schools, it's often harder for them to get the information of what's going to happen when they're transitioning through to adult services. And for some who are children, they may not have qualify for need from any services as a child, but once they're in adulthood, then that can be a different story, in that they've got to start from scratch of trying to find out where they get that help from. We have an awful lot of feedback about benefits and where people can get benefits advice from, and how poor that can be and how hard it can be for actually finding out where do we go to find out what we need to do, what do we need to do, and just not being aware of what an adult can actually apply for, because it's a very different system to what they've been used to as children. So the three bits that I've got here up on the screen, these are statements from some people that we've been to. The first one is specifically from one person, and this is from a lady who has gone through the mental health system as an adult, and she is pretty sure that it's all stemming back that when she was at school, she was getting bullied because she didn't fit in. She didn't have a diagnosis. She didn't fit into everything. And so she found things really, really difficult. And so she, in turn, used behaviour and other things to sort of make her presence known, and sort of reacting against what was happening to her. And she got bullied a lot at school, and she is pretty sure that if there'd been more support for her going through the school system, she may not have had the mental health issues that she had as an adult. And she would love to do some work with the school systems to try and help rectify some of that. We hear this from a lot of people, and especially from parents and carers, that when moving from children's services to adult services, it's starting from scratch again. And it's trying to find out where all that information is. Who do we speak to? If somebody hasn't been involved with social services as a child because there hasn't been that need there, or there's been no way of being able to get any respite, once they've reached 18, things can change and they actually need some support to figure out how to get through the system. And especially once they've left school, and they're trying to find out, how can I get a house? We were talking to a group of people a few weeks ago where they were at different stages of their life, but trying to find a way of getting their own house and being able to move out of the family home in their late 20s. One chap was in his 40s, just not sure how to do that and who to speak to, and finding it hard filling the forms in to be able to do that. And then the final one on here, we have heard, I cannot tell you how many times, if someone's gone through CAMHS, they feel that they've maybe had some support, that they've had some understanding. It's not that we always get great reports about CAMHS, but when they've gone into the adult mental health team, that is when they are finding that people aren't understanding them. And we hear this especially about women. That if you are a female and autistic, a lot of people still aren't understanding how their autism is being masked so much, that their needs aren't as apparent as they could be with some other people. So adult mental health teams, and I'm sorry for any of you out there who are in that, it is the feedback that we are having. Before I go on to the next slide, I'm just going to say a little bit of forewarning because it's not a nice story, but somebody told us this story a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought I'd put it in a bit of a nutshell and share it with you because it was very pertinent to this person. So what she said, that when she turned 18, her mum couldn't cope with her at home, and she was somebody who didn't seem to be able to get receipt of any services, and mum could not get any respite to help her with her daughter. And so the only way that she could help was to make the daughter homeless. And so the daughter was saying that, the only way was to make me homeless. And at the time, I was really angry with her. I took an overdose and was told by a doctor that she was seeing in the hospital that her mum didn't want her. It's only now as an adult that she understands why her mum did that and realises how hard it must be for her mum to have done that. Her and her mum have got a great relationship. Her mum is really supportive of her. And so it was really, really tough for her mum to be able to do what she did. But the daughter, at the time of being in her 18 to 25 years, really could not understand and just felt really sort of left out and left alone. And having a doctor then said to her that her mum didn't want her, actually, cut her to pieces. So it's being really careful how things are worded. Their relationship now is great. She is in supported living, and she is doing really, really well. And she's a great advocate around everything to do with autism, and is a great, she's got a great way of eloquency of speaking about it as well. But she has had a really tough life because mum could not get any respite when she had turned 18 and was going through those difficult years of growing up. So I just wanted to share that with you. And now I am hoping that Helena has joined us. And yes, I can see her name. Hi, Helena.
Hi, I'm here. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name's Helena Russell. I'm a commissioning manager in Hertfordshire. I work within Hertfordshire County Council on behalf of the council and the Hertfordshire and West Essex Integrated Care Board. And I work specifically in the Children and Young People's Mental Health Commissioning team. So my particular portfolio of work is in relation to the system redesign programme that we're doing for children's mental health services right across Hertfordshire. And more recently, I have taken on some work that a colleague of mine undertook about 18 months ago, looking specifically at support for young adults, so those aged between 18 and 25. And then within that, looking at that whole transitions piece from children's services or children's mental health services moving into adult services. So I was invited along today to obviously talk to you about transitions and what is happening in Hertfordshire at the moment. So I guess I'm going to caveat this presentation with the fact that for us, it's very much a piece of work that's in development. It's very much a live work stream for us at the moment, but we just thought it would be helpful to sort of give you an overview of what we're doing and essentially how it's been developed. So what I'm going to do for now is if I talk through my slides, which unfortunately only I can see, and then if they do come through an email, hopefully they can pop up and we can go through from that perspective. But I'm more than happy to share some resources afterwards as well for people to refer back to if needed. So I guess to set the scene in terms of this piece of work, we start with looking at the long-term plan ambitions from the NHS. So very much that piece around improving mental health services, both for children and young people, as well as young adults. And that intention to have a comprehensive offer of support for 0 to 25-year-olds that reaches right across mental health and physical health care. So from that, our wider commissioning team undertook a review of both children's and adult mental health services within Hertfordshire. And within that review, it incorporated examining the models of care that we've got in Hertfordshire, looking at that transitions piece, so gaining an understanding of how well young adults transition between CYP into adult services. And obviously within that, very much hearing the transition experiences of both young adults and their families, the parents, carers they have supporting them, and then similarly the professionals working with them and those that are sort of supporting them throughout their care pathway. So as a result of the review, a recommendations report was produced at the back end of last year's November 2022, and within that there was a number of things put forward. So the report, I think, identified a number of gaps and barriers, and unfortunately I'm sure they sort of feel familiar to a lot of us on this call and across our different service areas. So if I just take you through those, the three sort of key themes that came out were around criteria and thresholds. So there being differences in terms of the clinical criteria between children's and adult mental health services, and how that can quite often leave young people and their families feeling that they've been dropped. So they turn 18 and then suddenly what was there for them previously isn't there anymore. And I guess that sort of links into what Heather was saying a few moments ago. Also, as children become young adults, there's a smaller number of services and a seemingly sort of lack of choice below the specialist adult mental health services, particularly for those young people that may have more moderate needs. And of course, we're aware of the longer waiting times, particularly around CYP mental health services. So that means some young people are unfortunately not receiving those interventions before they turn 18. And so that sort of led us on to the age-related elements, so sort of looking at age-related development needs. So there's a need for more services that are tailored to the presenting mental needs of a young adult, and there's sort of being that gap between what the needs of a child and a young person are and the needs of an adult, and the sort of young adults maybe get lost a little bit in the interim. Very much a focus around the need for youth-friendly environments, which would support and encourage young people to access services to support their needs. The importance of building those trusting relationships with professionals and having that real holistic package of support around the young person. And then the final item that was identified was around neurodiversity and mental health. So again, sort of touching on what Heather's spoken about, but the barriers to understanding or the implementation of reasonable adjustments that are needed for young adults to access support for their mental health needs. As well as parents and carers within Hertfordshire feeling that there's gaps in terms of understanding the complex needs around neurodiverse young adults. So they were the sort of core elements within the report that then sort of led to the development of the recommendations. So I think the review essentially identified a number of principles that needed to be considered as we look forward. So essentially the report suggested that for future initiatives within Hertfordshire that are seeking funding and input from sort of our internal governance, there needs to be a clear focus around that needs-led approach. So really understanding the needs of the young adult and taking that sort of at the centre of the approach of supporting them. Very much a focus around that joint planning between children's and adult services, and also across the commissioners sort of overseeing both of those kinds of services. Highlighted the importance of co-production and ensuring that's really central. So working with young adults to design and deliver those initiatives moving forwards. Also tackling inequalities, so particularly among BME and LGBTQ plus groups. Ensuring that there's that integration across services that are supporting young adults, as again, I think there was quite a lot of feedback through the development of the review that suggested that there's a lot of frustration in that there's that sometimes that perceived disconnect across services that are supporting a young adult and or their family. And really thinking about those creative approaches that could be employed to support young adults and their parent and carers with lived experience within a sort of revamped care offer. So considering things like young adult peer support workers, parent peers, etc. So then obviously we sort of move on to the transitions recommendation, and that was quite a central point of the review and its findings. So in order for young adults to be held within the mental health system, it's really important that we implement changes to improve that transition time from children and young people's mental health services into adult mental health services, including for those young people that may then find that they're discharged from children's mental health service or transitioned into primary care rather than going into an adult service. So key things to be considered around that transition time is potentially implementing less rigid age structures so that there's more flexibility regarding the age at which a young person is transitioned, based more on their needs and circumstances. So rather than a young person potentially reaching 18 and straight away they're taken from a children's service, maybe understanding, is that in the best interest of a young person? How can that be explored and managed in a way that's appropriate for them and their needs? Similarly, considerations to be made regarding milestones, particularly in education, so considering like timings of exams and transfer to further education settings, including that transition planning with the young adult and their parent and carers as appropriate, to make sure again that it's managed in a way that's supportive and appropriate for them. Looking into cross-funding agreements between children and adult mental health services and thinking how these can be explored as we move forward. There was a recommendation around commissioners really ensuring that there's that sort of robust quality assurance around transitions and making sure that that's standard practice within contract specifications and sort of taken through contract review meetings and considered appropriately. And then the key bit in terms of the work that I'm now delivering is around developing a business case to provide transition coordinators or navigators to deliver an additional function of non-clinical support for young adults and work right across the mental health services to ensure that we've got those really well planned and timely transitions and informed discharges where necessary. So that's the piece of work that I've been undertaking recently. A business case has been taken through our governance process, and I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail shortly. But I just wanted, unfortunately, I've got an image that I want to show you, but obviously I can't share the slides at the moment. But essentially, thinking about this transition navigator at the centre of the multitude of sort of other roles and support offers that we have, particularly in Hertfordshire. So that's thinking being that point of liaison and contact across primary care or their GP or the voluntary sector or adult mental health services or social care, and really having that means to sort of provide support and information, but similarly sharing information across partners, obviously with consent of the young adult, and really facilitating that communication across different services and taking the onus off maybe the young adult and their family. As again, that's something that we heard through the review, is there's often a feeling that the young person has to be responsible for coordinating all the different professionals that they're responsible for. But similarly, another core function we think would be important would having that really robust signposting and advice and guidance from a transition navigator. So thinking in terms of that holistic support, sort of helping them navigate social care support or maybe further education and employment, or if it's a case of needing support with finding appropriate housing, accessing the right benefits, etc. Really having that sort of that holistic model of support around the young adult. So then in terms of the development of the role, we had a number of task and finish groups running over a period of time, which was made up of sort of clinical, operational, technical staff. We had the voice of young adults and families as well. But the thoughts that came out of those sessions that helped inform our business case were around having a non-clinical role to enhance the existing clinical provision that we have within Hertfordshire. And there was an element of thinking there are recruitment challenges around workforce at the moment. So by considering non-clinical roles, it would potentially expand the talent pool and hopefully make it an attractive job offer for professionals working across the system. It would very much be an offer of support around that transition by acting as that point of liaison and advocacy for the young adult between the CYP services and the adult mental health services, doing things like supporting the sharing of correct information, making sure that's exchanged at the appropriate time with the appropriate professionals, reducing that need for the young adult or their family to continuously retell their story, as again, that's something that we hear a lot, that having to tell your story multiple times over and over again to professionals can sometimes lead to our young people feeling really disconnected and sort of disengaged. Similarly, we're hoping that the role will work with providers as well to support them in the planning of transitions and to make sure that those plans are in place well ahead of the transition age to ensure that it can be done in a way that's best made to sort of support the needs of that young adult. Similarly, working with sort of all parties involved to ensure that there's that clear understanding of pathways and what that looks like for the young adult. So trying to sort of mitigate the confusion and the maybe anxiety that comes with this transition time by being able to signpost to sort of sources of support for the young adult, particularly thinking about those that may be discharged from CYP services back to the community and facilitate those communications within the community as appropriate. So again, it takes some of the onus away from the young person and they're sort of held by the system and supported when they're entering this point in their life. The other element comes probably from more of a commissioning angle, but really understanding the data around how many young adults we have transitioning within the county or those out of area coming back into the county. So look at that data and really understand the upcoming needs at the point of transition. So what are the needs that we're going to be having to meet within Hertfordshire? How can we manage that? Are the adult services sort of aware and prepared as necessary? So in terms of the proposed support structure, we put forward a case to have 2 whole-time equivalent Band 5 transition navigators who would be overseen by a clinical role as well, who would then manage both the navigators and some admin support function that would enable coordination of appointments, meetings, collecting data, etc., things like that. And then the navigators themselves would support the existing clinicians working with that young adult to sort of facilitate the more holistic elements. So they wouldn't be responsible for the clinical side of things, but very much a sort of support and enhancement to the offer that the young adult is receiving. In Hertfordshire, we're considering it as a pilot. So essentially, we've had the backing of the business case and we're looking at taking that forward now, hoping that we can have it in a 2-phased approach. So the initial 12 months and then enabling sort of a really robust evaluation to then review how the roles have worked, how they have supported young adults and their families, how it sort of enhanced the support available within the system, and then using that information to sort of expand on, I guess, in the second year of the pilot and being able to sort of deploy more navigators across Hertfordshire, but really having a focus on the data to understand the demand, the level of need and what kinds of needs we have in Hertfordshire. And similarly, really ensuring that we've got the voice of the young adult central to that. So really understanding how they feel, how their needs have been met or not met potentially, whether or not they feel the outcomes that they were seeking through their transition period have been achieved, and if not, how they could be better supported going forward. So as I sort of touched on at the beginning, it's very much a live and evolving piece of work, but it feels quite exciting. And I think, that there's a real interest in it within Hertfordshire, which is fantastic. And hopefully as things develop, it will really give us an opportunity to really enhance the support for our young adults. And then again, sort of in future, be able to share that with colleagues from right across the region for those that are interested. So that's very much a whistle-stop tour. But if if I'd been able to share my slides, we'd be able to see that I've reached the end. I hope that's interesting and useful. So if we've got any questions or feedback, I'd be really happy to take those now. I'll just see if I can get the chat up. Yeah, so I can see a comment around the challenge in adult mental health teams and linking up support that's appropriate for people as they end up as you move between services and you end up bouncing between teams. And again, I recognise that as something that we've had, there's a lot of feedback around that within Hertfordshire. And again, the hope with these roles is they will quite literally navigate the system or support both, the young adults and professionals navigating the system. I think sometimes that's what's missing. It's sort of that, I don't want to say extra pair of hands, but do you know what I mean? To sort of facilitate some of that conversation, do some of that information gathering and the information sharing.
Has anybody else designed anything like that, like this in the areas where you are working?
The other example, actually, that I may have some resources that I can share actually afterwards, Heather, if that would be useful. But we spoke with Central Northwest London as well, and so they have a model that's very much live and up and running now. So it's slightly different to what we're sort of in the process of developing within Hertfordshire. But actually, what was really interesting was that they were taking a non-clinical approach as well. So it was really interesting to see how it's sort of developing. I don't think they've reached a point of evaluation yet, if I recall correctly. But yeah, it may be that I can sort of link up with partners in Central Northwest London and see if they're able to share any sort of evaluation work that might be useful to this forum, if you like, Heather.
Thank you, that'd be great.
I can see that there's similar roles within Bedfordshire as well, so that could be, thanks Rebecca, might be worth linking up on that one. The same in Cambridgeshire. And there's something in Norfolk as well. It's good to see, because that's what's been quite difficult, is trying to sort of understand what's happening in other areas and where the sort of similarities are. So that's definitely helpful to me to see. So we can link in with other.
And I think it is the thing of being able to sort of being able to communicate with other people who are doing a similar service, so that you're all not working together to deliver exactly the same. But you'll come across different things that haven't worked as well, things that have worked better, and maybe actually get rid of some of the things that didn't work without doing it. So there's a similar one in Norfolk as well.
Yeah, that's really good to know.
So Gemma is saying, when would a navigator be introduced? Would it be a service only available to people who are open to a service?
So in terms of the pilot, the thinking is, yes, it would be those that are already within a CYP mental health service and are sort of due to be commencing the transition protocol, essentially. So we have a protocol within Hertfordshire from the NHS provider. So it would be at that point. And I think as well, there's a consideration around, because we need to sort of really understand the numbers. And obviously with only 2 workers initially, it would probably be a sort of phased approach. So we may do it as a sort of opt-in scheme, that detail sort of being worked up at the moment.
And then is HPFT taking part in this pilot scheme?
They are very much involved in current conversations.
What HPFT is.
HPFT is Hertfordshire Partnership University Foundation Trust within Hertfordshire, so it's the main NHS trust within Hertfordshire. But yes, they are involved in the discussions at the moment.
And so in Norfolk, I'm able to have a phone conversation with navigators before referral, and that's very helpful to do.
Yeah, I think that's something that we found as well. It's just sometimes it just needs to be a quick conversation, and that can make all the difference. Do you know what I mean? Just being able to pick up the phone and have that conversation with that other professional, or for the young person or their family member. So that's definitely something that we're considering, particularly around that sort of information sharing, gathering type element of the role.
I work in the voluntary service, but in a transition team project supporting young people aged 16 to 25, with the transition going from children to, sorry, an email came through, just I'm reading that, from children to adult mental health services, but we have highlighted the additional challenges for those with autism or neurodiversity, and that's in Northamptonshire. Thank you.
I mean, if people are happy for me to sort of reach out, I'd be really happy to have sort of separate conversations as well with colleagues on the call, just to understand how your sort of respective local models are working around this. That'd be really helpful. Or similarly, if you want to share my contact email, Heather.
Yeah, so when we get your PowerPoint to send on, is your email address
I'll make sure it's
on there?
It's not in there at the moment, but yes, I'll pop it in there.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay, we'll do that then, so that you will all get the PowerPoint. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
I'm so sorry about the technical side of it.
That's okay.
Brilliantly.
That's okay. These things happen.
Yeah.
But I'm more than happy to come back once things are a little bit more underway and we've probably got a bit more meat on the bones, I guess. It'd be good to come back and sort of share how things are going.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You can sit back and enjoy the rest of the session now.
Thanks,
Thank you. Okay, so we're now going to ask Rachel to join us. So sorry, I'm just going to share my screen so that you can, well, I don't need to. Rachel, you can introduce yourself. Rachel's, I was just going to put that, you're welcome slide up. So Rachel's a transitions officer, is that correct?
Yeah.
For Autism Hertfordshire. So I know Rachel, but just getting the job title correct is the right thing. So I will pass over to you.
So my name is Rachel. I'm the transition support officer in Hertfordshire for Autism Hertfordshire. So it's not moving. There we go. So what I'm going to be talking about today is why our service was created, what is the transition service at Autism Hertfordshire, and some feedback from our members. So in 2019, the Hertfordshire All Age Co-Production Board's key finding was that there was a need for a service for autistic adults that offered sort of support, advice and guidance. They found that there was a gap in that sort of service. So I believe it was September 2021, we were commissioned and Autism Hertfordshire was created. So we've got various services available. Just as sort of some general information, we have a post-diagnostic service which offers newly diagnosed autistic adults within the past year, sort of 8 to 10 one-to-one sessions, to go through sort of managing emotions to deal with getting diagnosed, help with form filling, applying for benefits, anything that helps these people sort of come to terms with their diagnosis, and also find out other services that are available for them as well. We have our adult skills sessions as well, which are workshops and courses. These are on lots of different topics, such as sort of managing anxiety, understanding my autistic identity, what else we do, managing money, lots of different things. And the third sort of service is the transition service. So we offer lots of different things. So they're aimed at young autistic adults aged 16 to 25. We have a fortnightly interest-led social group. We have our workshops and courses, and we also have a monthly support group session for parent carers. I'm going to talk a little bit about what each of those entail. So our workshops, we offer sort of 4 workshops a month. They're weekly on Zoom at the moment. So this is our example from May. We covered assertive communication, managing anxiety in social situations, mindfulness, and talk about reasonable adjustments. What are they? So what do members gain from a workshop, or what does a workshop entail? So we have discussions around these topics. So we have presentations similar to this. We'll talk about certain topics. There'll also be discussion points. So it promotes sort of discussion with peers and how they may have similar experiences or completely different. Often it's really nice to see the members sharing sort of strategies. So for example, managing anxiety in social situations, I'll come with some coping strategies that perhaps have been suggested for me, the sort of normal strategies you get as well for anxiety, breathing techniques, all those sorts of things, and then perhaps autism specific coping strategies as well. And then members will share theirs as well, what's worked for them, what's maybe not worked for them, and having those conversations and also hearing that they're not alone in sort of what they're going through as well is really, really nice for them. Members' views on these topics as well. So perhaps does mindfulness work for them? Because mindfulness doesn't work for everyone. Is there a specific part of mindfulness that does work for you? Do you do it a little bit differently that does work for you? Sharing that with your peers and sort of helping others to learn that as well. So strategies for perhaps managing a conflict. That's something we cover a lot. Sort of part of conversations and communication. If I want to say no, how do I say it politely? If I want to end a conversation, how do I end that conversation politely? If I want to start a conversation, how do I do that? How do I maintain a conversation? All things we cover. We also cover sort of building relationships, building friendships, and building confidence in talking about these types of topics, because some members have come sort of straight from school, college, perhaps their employment, and the idea of talking about anxiety in a social situation might be a completely new topic to some of these, and hearing what other peers have to say about that, how they cope, how they're not alone in that, really helps them sort of build the confidence to share their opinions, and also perhaps help someone else out as well. So they're sort of our workshops. We cover lots of different topics, and also we're member led. So if a member has something they'd like to cover, for example, last month we did identifying a banking scam, because one member unfortunately had a banking scam come through on their email, and we put together a workshop on identifying that, what we can do if we've been scammed, how to keep calm if you get scammed. We got really good feedback on that. So very member led as well. If they have something they would like to cover, we'll always try and do that. So that is our workshops. Similarly, we run sessions in person in the half terms and holidays. The reason for this at the moment is a lot of our members are sort of in school, college, and the half terms seem to be the best time to run these in-person courses. In February half term, we ran our Preparing for Work course. This was a 2-day course on employment support. So we covered things like what the different types of works are and what work would work for you: part-time, full-time, 0 hours contract, contracted work, looking at the pros and cons for each for that particular individual. We looked at our skills, abilities, qualities and interests. So if they do go and then have an interview, they've got all those, they can refer back to them. And also it's sort of talking about those and realising that you do have skills, you do have qualities to you, strengths, and actually realising that, because some of our members don't realise what their strengths are. How to structure a CV. So we broke it down a bit. We had a worksheet that they could fill out, and then they would go away and create the CV themselves. Starting work and the expectations. So that might be what clothes you might wear, appropriate, how you will be perhaps formal in a work setting, what you might need to bring your certificates if you first get offered a job, all that sort of stuff. Preparing a cover letter and preparing for an interview. So we looked at appropriate dress, we looked at how we'd answer common interview questions, what questions we might ask the interviewer. So the idea was that they would have a pack, so if they go and run a job interview or they're looking at getting a job, they can refer back to this pack and actually use it. So yeah, we also had one-to-one time to look at some jobs together, see what's out there, because for some members this is their first time even considering getting a job or getting a feel for what's out there, what they might like to do as a career. And yet members were also supported to structure a CV and cover letter and explore how we prepare for an interview. So that's just one example of an in-person course we've done. We've also done a cooking course where we explored healthy eating. We then actually made healthy pizzas and fruit salads, and we talked about healthy swaps. So we made banana chocolate chip cookies instead of just chocolate chip cookies. We've also covered budgeting and managing money. So we sort of compared, say, Tesco own brand chocolate to Cadbury's chocolate, or Tesco own brand bread to Warburton's bread. And we did a blind taste test. So we sort of rated the quality of it, things like that. And then we compared how much it was and how, you can make swaps to save money. Also how we can budget the apps that are out there at the moment, how tips to budget, that sort of thing. And we've also looked at sort of well-being, communication and friendship. Our most recent course, May half term, was building confidence and self-esteem. So we looked at what is self-esteem. We looked at a self-esteem journal. We made our own positive affirmations. So lots of different sessions that we cover. And we also have a fortnightly social group. So once a month that's online, and we play games, we do quizzes, we chat, and once a month it's in person. So we've been for meals, we've been to mini golf, we've been to the cinema, we've recently been to Ninja Warrior, which was a fan favourite in Watford. We've been to trampoline parks. We've actually got our social group tonight, and we are going for a meal. Also, this is member led as well, so I've had lots and lots of different suggestions. Most recently we've had a suggestion to go skydiving, and when I said, oh, do you mean the indoor skydiving, they said no, proper skydive from an airplane. I said I don't think we'll pass the risk assessment on that one, but so yeah, we very member led. We will do what we can. Ninja Warrior was a very requested social, so we are doing that again in the summer as well. So yeah, it's great. It's a really lovely group, and we do lots of different things. And then finally, we do have a support group for parent carers, and we actually have two parent carer support groups at Autism Hertfordshire. One is specifically for parent carers of autistic young adults aged 16 to 25, and one is for parent carers of adults 18 plus. So depending on what category you fall into, you'll be able to do both. It's a monthly support session. So these are examples from January and February. We looked at special interests, we looked at sensory difference. So we normally come with that topic, we'll have a look at it, and we'll have discussions as well around those topics. So that sort of covers what we do at the transition service. If you do have any questions about that, please put them in the chat box. So feedback we've had from members when sort of joining our service, a lot said that sort of when they turned 18, they felt like they'd jumped from the children's to the adult services, and support was hard to find, particularly mental health support. Many members use the transition service as their main social life and skill development. Some are still sort of figuring out what they want to do. They're using this to build up their skills, build up their confidence, and then use those skills that we're learning at the socials and build that all up to then progress into finding employment or perhaps going back to college. Some members are in college straight from school, some are at university, some are in or finding employment. And some use other services. So things like sepsis skills are really useful for some of our members, as we've had a few cases where they finish college not really knowing what to do next, not really feel like they're ready or confident to go straight into employment. And steps to skills in Hertfordshire, they support finding a job, but also transitioning into that. So you get paired with a job coach, and they build up that confidence, and they find a job that suits your skills, your abilities, and your wants as well. A lot of our other members use things sort of the Prince's Trust schemes, Mind for mental health support. So yeah, feedback from our members is that it's difficult going from children to adults, because it seems like you've got a routine from school. So you go to school, and then you might go to college, or you might stay on from A levels, but as soon as that's finished and that sort of routine is gone, what then happens? And you're sort of finding out what support is there for you transitioning to adulthood. So our services are designed to support in that step to independence for both the young adults and their parent carers as well. So I've got some videos from some of our members which talks about how our transition service has helped them and what they've enjoyed. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Let me know if you can't. This is one of our members.
Ever since I started with Autism Hertfordshire, it has really helped me. They have given me experience about independent living and skills that I probably need in the future, because I have a feeling that these are skills that I might not easily be able to know at college. And the skills that I am currently doing also involve these activities that I'm finding a lot of fun. I am also doing some in college as well, but these are the normal activities that are definitely very essential when in the living life. I am really happy that I am attending these courses, is because they really give me ideas of social skills and independent living.
That's one of our lovely members. Got another member here who actually makes TikToks on being autistic, and she made one about our social group that she shared with me. So I'd like to share this with you all as well.
So I just wanted to share something really cool that happened to me today. So I'm autistic, I'm recently diagnosed, and part of that diagnosis I have been in a post-diagnostic service, and they have created a social group for other young autistic adults like me. Today I went to this group and we went to a trampoline park. It's really fun, and for the first time ever in my life I felt like I could go to an event with completely strangers I've never met before and just be myself, because everyone was so nice, everyone was just so happy to see me, everyone was like me, everyone was unmasked as well, like I think mostly unmasked, so they just felt more comfortable being themselves. I've just never felt so welcomed, and it was just really nice.
And then we've got one more as well.
So I just wanted to share.
How has Autism Hertfordshire supported you?
It has given me a couple new friends who have been in the same situations as I have been. It gives me a way to interact with people with the same needs as me, which I find very helpful, as we all have different solutions to our problems, and some solutions that they've explained to me have helped me. And it gives me meets every month that I can go to, a couple in person and a couple online during Zoom. They've also given me one-to-one support if I need to talk about anything or anything that's happened. They've always been supporting me.
So it's lovely to hear that feedback from our members and hear what parts of the service have really helped them, if there's anything we can do to improve as well, anything they suggest. So hopefully that shows what support we give to our members, and positive feedback that we get as well. So if you are interested, if you're thinking of someone in your head that might benefit from our services, be that for transitions or for our adult skills 18 plus, how to access our services, contact us on inquiries at autismhearts.org. We will then send through an application form. If you get this back to us, and then we'll set up an informal assessment. So it's just a chat really about anything on the application form, what services that person is looking for, and discuss with them what we offer as well, what we've got coming up, and that will be on Zoom. So yeah, if you did have anyone in mind, please give us an email, and that is it. Thank you.
But people do have to live in Hertfordshire to access your service.
Yes, sorry about that, should have mentioned.
Yeah.
Yep, we have to be Hertfordshire resident.
Oh, right, brilliant, thank you. So I don't know if you got a chance to have a look at the chat. There's quite a lot of comments coming through, very, very positive comments on what a service. For those of you who do not live in Hertfordshire, I is getting in touch with, maybe Sean has put on for Cambridge, it could be Autism Anglia, but getting in touch with local charities and the local authority for funding something locally. So there's a question, do you work within mainstream schools too, and how much support do people get in school?
We don't directly go into schools, so we have looked at the idea of working with colleges, and the idea with that was we would go in and just run one of our courses to the students of that college if they had a autism diagnosis. However, at the moment, we're sort of, if you become a member of our services, then you have access to all our workshops and courses. So we're not directly going into schools or working with schools. So yeah, I hope that helps a little bit.
I just want to read this one out. So Autism Hertfordshire is part of Autism Beds, but this is not to blow the trumpet for Autism Beds. I'm going to read it first, and I'll comment on that. My nephew has a better social life with Autism Bedfordshire than I do. Great service. It has built his confidence in the ways we couldn't. It is also incredibly heartwarming hearing from chat about jobs he would like to do and the knowledge he has been given about succeeding. Thank you, Autism Beds. My comment about that is more, if you build that confidence up, an autistic person often has really low self-esteem. And by building that confidence through those teenage years, the late teenage years, early adulthood, as to what somebody can do, for somebody who's maybe been knocked back a lot in their lives, actually building them up and showing them that actually there's a lot of opportunity out there. It's just showing them and giving them the want to do something else, and the fact that actually I can. So it's you can't say how good that type of thing is. And so it's just having people who care and have the time and the ability to support these young people. There's a question: would you have to have an autism diagnosis to access?
Our service, yes, but you have to live in Hertfordshire to access our services. Same for Autism Bedfordshire, you live in Bedfordshire. I'm not. The next question ties in nicely. Is there similar service support group available in Norfolk? Transforming Care Navigators. Autism Aguilera also cover this area. Thank you, Shana.
I'd just like to say to Victoria that the waiting lists in Bedfordshire are long as well. And Autism Bedfordshire also offer a pre-diagnostic support as well. So if people are on waiting lists, they can get it that way.
Yes, I should have mentioned that as well. We have just launched our pre-diagnostic workshops as well. So if there is someone on the waiting list, or you think you might be autistic, if you live in Hertfordshire, you'd have access to them as well.
This is brilliant feedback. Thank you all. Can Milton Keynes access this through Autism Beds?
Shana,
yeah. Because we do have some social groups in Milton Keynes, definitely. I don't know about transition team in Milton Keynes, so Shana, if you are still there, we want your knowledge. If not, we can get the information out.
Yeah, Shana said some services available in MK.
Sorry, I may have missed this, but do you support people in understanding healthcare and getting checkups and screening, etc.?
Yeah, we can. So they're very member led. So if that's something that you think someone may benefit from, that's something we can definitely look at. It's not something we've covered yet in transitions, but definitely something that we can look at.
Brilliant. And I think I've got to the bottom. Thank you, Shana, for answering all those. Oh, I found them. That was brilliant. Thank you, Rachel. It's great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, we will be sharing the presentation. And Rachel, you've got an email address at the bottom, haven't you, that people can contact you on?
Yes, I will put both emails in the chat as well now.
Sorry, I'm just reading another one. If a young person is living in Northamptonshire but accesses health services mental health pathway through Bedfordshire, would they be applicable for the Bedfordshire services offered? I'm thinking you have to live in Bedfordshire to be able to get that. So
yes, I don't know if Shana could help with that.
Okay, Shana, you keep working your way through the list, and I'm going to carry on to the next slides. But thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm now going to share my screen back again. So it's just a couple of slides to go, and then you'll be free to leave. So I had a quick look on the internet to see what was out there. If people are able to share from the different authorities you come from, information that you've got about preparation for adulthood, that would be great. You could send us the links and we can hold them on our Hear Me See Me webpage. But it's just looking to see that there is something there, that there is information for parent carers and young people to be able to access, so that they can see what there is out there. And some of these are really great books and are very easy to follow. So anything that we do, it's about sharing good practice. And so Helena and Rachel have shared what they are doing today. And in some of the comments, there are some comments there about things that are happening in your areas. If you are doing that, if you have got some links to good practice or things that you would like to share, really please do share them with us so that we can send an email out with all the information to everybody who comes on these webinars. So Hear Me, See Me, autismbeds.org is the email to send things through. But please really do share anything that you know of so that other people get to know about them. And, you know, professionals in one area should be helping professionals in another area. It's not reinventing the wheel every time. So our next meeting is on the 6th of September, and it is about reasonable adjustments. In our last webinar, we had people from Bedfordshire. Today we've had people from Hertfordshire. We would love to have people from another area feed into this for the next meeting. So if you live in one of those areas and you would like to share some of the work that you're doing, and this is across the east of England. I know we've had some comments back from different places, but please do let us know so that we can have a chat with you and get connected, and so that, you know, we are sharing across everywhere across the east of England. It isn't just areas that we know of. And so really do please get in touch. So that is the 6th of September, reasonable adjustments, and the net will be sending emails out about this in the near future. So thank you for attending today. Any questions, send to the Hear Me, See Me email, or my email is there at the bottom of this slide. We will be sending all the presentations out in due course. So you will be getting an email from Annette with all that included. So thank you very much for being with us today. Any questions, just keep putting them in that chat box and we will take a look at them. But thank you, and go and enjoy the rest of the day. We now have sunshine where I am. I hope it's sunny where you are. So thank you very much, and bye for now.